afternoon/good evening. Today's Monday, April 11th, 2022. My name is Janice Scurio. You may follow me at Scuriosa on Twitter. It's Scuriosa. With me, as always, is my inimitable co-host, Subria Whitaker. You may also follow the CHGO Sky Twitter, CHGO_Sky Twitter account. And while you're at it, go ahead and follow CHGO_sports. Anyway, Subria, how the heck are you? Good evening. How are you doing on this lovely WNBA draft evening?
I'm doing really well. I have my orange WNBA hoodie on. For those who cannot see me, we have the team ball here with all the logos and front and center if you can't see us as well. And so I'm just really excited to see what chaos is about to take over WNBA Twitter.
Indeed. In case you missed our last show, we had a special guest, Candace Dupree, there. So some of the big takeaways we had from our conversation with Candace. So she did mention that the WNBA highlights the same faces of every season, and that we do need to tell everyone's stories, which is kind of why we're here. We want to definitely tell a good, diverse amount of stories. So perhaps we can lean into that and tell different stories as the season goes on. Some of the other things that we talked about with Candace, conditions for WNBA players have generally gotten better, but of course there's always room for improvement. For example, player marketing could definitely be better, but this is also largely applicable to Major League Baseball. So definitely kind of a problem that kind of encourages all throughout sports. So Subria, what were some of your favorite points, or your favorite parts of our conversation with Candace last week?
Well, outside of the fact that just her sheer presence and participation in our show, obviously that was huge for me as a Sky fan, huge for, I feel like, CHGO Sky and sports overall. But I really like that she was so candid.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, I love the Candid with Candace segment because she really didn't hold anything back, even though she had to be politically correct, of course. I really liked how she shared her own experiences about the team she played for, where she lived, and even an instance where the team she played for maybe wasn't as focused on the court as they should have been. So sharing a piece of her story about how that really trickled down into, the walk-ins and how much attention is now going to social media in the league fits. I think it's clear that she provides an insight that you and I could never replace.
Right.
So I hope that sets a standard for getting more current and retired players in these media spaces to talk about what's really going on behind the scenes that we don't really get to see.
Yeah, it was very enriching and very interesting to kind of see her perspective as a player. But yeah, definitely, I highly encourage you to go back and listen to the episode. It was our 4th episode, just dedicated to number 4, just 4s all around, Sky and 4. But yeah, definitely a fantastic episode of this show. I highly encourage you to go back and listen to it. So now let's go ahead and cover some news from across the W. So perhaps the coolest thing I have heard all this week, Chicago is hosting the 2022 WNBA All-Star Game. How cool
Allegedly.
is that? Oh, allegedly.
Allegedly.
It hasn't been officially announced by the league yet.
Yes.
But all right, so if this does happen, what does it mean for the city? And of course, what could this mean for the league? I think it's a really fantastic opportunity to show what Chicago has to offer when it comes to supporting women's basketball specifically. Subria, like what are the things that you'd be looking the most forward to if this happens?
Well, okay, so just to kind of look ahead a little bit, I did include this in today's segment of Court of Law, so I will try and steer away from the points that I'll be making there, but I think it would be a great opportunity considering that we just hosted the NBA All-Star Weekend.
That's right.
Last year, right? I can't even remember.
I think it was right before
COVID,
the pandemic.
Right before the pandemic. And that was a great time. So just being able to have experienced that and now being able to experience, okay, what does the WNBA version of that look like? And there are a lot of things going on that I'll get into later that I think would be really important for the youth. And we talk about growing the game. And I think that's a true opportunity to do so, especially in a city like Chicago, where I've always known it to be a basketball city for both our boys and our girls.
Right.
And I just think it will also be really fun because it's happening after, you know, the championship. And so to me, until someone else wins this trophy, we are the champions. So the champions get to host All-Star Weekend at home. Sounds like a lot of fun.
So tentatively, the date is going to be July 10th at Wintrust Arena. A really great opportunity for Chicago to showcase women's basketball and, of course, grow the game. And, of course, if this happens, it'll be the first year that Chicago hosts the game. So it was first played in 1999 in New York. So Lisa Leslie was crowned MVP. So most recently, Candace Parker, Kalia Copper, Courtney Vandersloot all got All-Star status last year. In case you forgot, Allie Quigley won the three-point contest. So if you also forgot this part, Candace Parker is also a 2013 All-Star MVP with the LA Sparks. So really exciting news overall for the city and for the Sky as well. Right, so you might be wondering what the Sky are doing overseas and also too in the States as well. So we've been talking a lot about the Euro Leagues. So Steph Dolson, Sopron Basket, wins for the first time after they beat their opponents, and it's Fenerbahce Port. Oh my God, that's terrible. They won 60-55 in front of a crowd of 9,500 fans in Istanbul, Turkey on Saturday. That's Istanbul, not Constantinople. But apparently, I did see a video that it seems as if there might be an injury. So Kalia Copper did perhaps suffer an injury in the EuroLeague Final Four. So it looks like it may be a sprained ankle, but other than that, we really haven't heard much. Hopefully it's not too much to worry about. I did see that Stu Dufal did tweet on Saturday that praying for you, sis. I hope it's nothing serious. But otherwise, I haven't heard anything else. Hopefully it's just a mild sprain and she'll be to form once the season starts. Subria, have you heard anything?
Haven't heard anything, but I did go check, and from what I saw, she was tweeting and on Instagram afterwards. So hopefully that's a good sign, and maybe one of those, you know, no news is good news, because hopefully she doesn't necessarily know what's wrong. So I'm assuming, you know, if it's like a more detrimental injury like an ACL or something like that, maybe they could say that immediately, but maybe she has to undergo some more I guess processes to see what's really happening. Right. So we just have to cross our fingers and hold our breath until then.
Yeah, probably she may need to go under some more in-depth evaluation. But yes. I did see that she did make an Instagram post, and she did tweet too. And I did see some concerned Sky fans in her mentions. Yes. But from what we see so far, just crossing our fingers and hoping she'll be okay for the start of the season. So some other Sky news overseas. Ruthie and Stu actually reunited in Italy. It was a really heartwarming image. We saw the two of them, little sis, big sis. Like I just love images like this. It just kind of warms my heart. We also posted this on the CHGO Sky account as well. Definitely, we love all of our old friends. So really nice to see Ruthie and Stu reunited. Right. So the other fun thing, we'll probably talk more about this next week. Training camp starts soon and the season begins. So I've been really liking Azurá Stevens' Instagram countdown, where she's just kind of dancing with her dog, looking judgmentally in the background. Following the players on Instagram is always a hoot. They always have a great time with social media. They always seem to have fun doing it too. So really excited that Azurá is excited to get back and run it back for the Sky. Some other Sky news. So reports are surfacing that Lee Yaru has not been permitted by the Chinese Basketball Federation to play in the WNBA this year. So in case you missed it, the Sky did acquire the rights to Lee from the Los Angeles Sparks in exchange for Lexi Brown. She was signed to a rookie scale contract. So she is more than likely not going to make the start of training camp. Subria, your thoughts on how this is going to affect the roster?
I honestly don't know, because the fact that she was immediately signed to the rookie contract, to me, tells me that they really felt she was a core piece to the team that they're envisioning. And of course, other decisions were likely made with that in mind. So, I don't want it to end up being like a domino effect where one piece is missing and it just kind of messes up the flow of everything they had going on. But hopefully it all works out, because since we don't have any draft picks, we might have to end up doing some more digging with a training camp contract or a trade to get a replacement.
This is from the story by Annie Costabile. The best case scenario would have Lee in the United States in a month, but her participation with all the other Chinese players in the WNBA is subject to the CBF's approval. So her agent said that she is currently in the process of applying for a personal passport. So training camp begins April 17th, so exactly 1 week from today, and the Sky currently have 18 players signed. The maximum number of players allowed in camp at any time is 15, but James Wade knows a number of players will arrive late. So, just some interesting things to mix things up as we head to the beginning of the season. All right. Speaking of mixing things up, oh boy, the best way to support CHGO is to download the PointsBet app and use code CHGO when you sign up. If you do that right now, you'll get 2 risk-free bets up to $2,000. But wait, there's more. If you make a $50 or more first-time deposit, you'll receive a free CHGO membership, which unlocks all of our web content, and you'll even get a free shirt of your choice from the CHGO locker. Rumor has it there is a super dope CHGO Sky shirt that you can order when you sign up. Oh, yeah. Just a testimonial. Someone wore it yesterday, and it is indeed awesome.
And I ordered it as well and am waiting to get it. So
Yes. I also have ordered it as well. Yes, that is $2,000 in free bets, a free CHGO membership, and a free t-shirt from the CHGO locker, all for making more than a $50 first-time deposit at PointsBet. If you have any questions, you can email pointsbet@allchgo.com, and we'll be more than happy to help you out. So, your home for live in-play betting just got even better. Introducing PointsBet's new feature, Live NBA Same Game Parlay. For the first time ever, you can build the perfect live NBA Same Game Parlay. Why are we talking about the NBA? Only with PointsBet. Combine your favorite bets anytime during the game. Want more? You can also boost your live same game parlays. You can watch live, parlay live, and boost live with PointsBet. And now, online sign-up is available in Illinois. You can download the PointsBet app right meow and register your account from start to finish, all from your phone. So what are you waiting for? Besides this podcast to finish, once the game starts, don't just bet. Live your bet life with PointsBet. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-522-4700. All right, now that we've done that, now let's go ahead and move on to talking about the WNBA draft. It is happening literally right now. Well, not literally right now. I think we're only about 13 minutes away from the draft starting. So, you may choose to, actually no, most of you should be having some sort of dual screen setup, so you could watch us and also watch the draft at the same time. Modern technology is amazing, so please go ahead and do that. Pull up ESPN and keep YouTube open and watch your favorite CHGO Sky podcasters as you watch, your WNBA rookies. So, all right, so we've got 3 rounds, 12 players around. So in theory, 1 player a team for each round for 36 total picks. So we've mentioned this on the podcast before. The Sky this year have no picks. So they gave their first round pick away and a 3-team signed and trade that sent Diamond DeShields to Phoenix and brought Julie Alleman to the Sky. And also, too, they dealt the second-round pick to Dallas in exchange for the Wings' 2021 second pick last year. They traded Shyla Heel, this year's third-round pick, and the right to swap 2022 first-round picks to the Dallas Wings for Dana Evans. All right, so now that we've got the Sky out of the way, we know why they don't have any picks this year. I want to know a little bit about your predictions and also, too, who you think are the top draft prospects.
All right, so we know that from the lottery and recently a trade. So for those who are not caught up, Atlanta Dream now has the number 1 pick in a last-minute trade from Washington that had WNBA Twitter in a frenzy and an uproar that even got some players and a coach involved. Indiana Fever has the second pick, which has worried a lot of people considering that for whatever reason, Indiana just does not like their draft picks.
Yeah.
As if they're not the ones making them, but that's another story for another episode. And the number 3 pick will go to a Washington Mystics from Atlanta. So originally with Washington having the number 1 pick and the Atlanta having the 3rd pick, they switched. And the Mystics head coach said that they are confident in the top 3 projected picks. So they felt whether they got the first pick, the second pick, or the 3rd pick, they would end up with a great player that they feel they could just easily incorporate into their system and their roster. So they're happy to move down to number 3. And obviously Atlanta is super excited to be number 1. And for those of you who may not know, their last number 1 pick was Angel McCoughtry, who after a very long season in Atlanta ended up going to Las Vegas Aces after she was a free agent and is now in Minnesota with the Minnesota Lynx. So, I mean, when you talk about Angel McCoughtry, that's someone who is a true vet that a lot of players like playing with, a lot of teams probably want and hate going up against. And she's still, fighting for a ring. So hopefully Atlanta knows what they're doing with this new ownership group. So, yeah.
Awesome. So you've got the top draft prospects. At number 1, you've got Ryan Howard, a guard from Kentucky. Number 2, Nalissa Smith, power forward from Baylor. Number 3, Shakira Austin, a center from Ole Miss. So I think you said that that Atlanta will select Ryan Howard first overall. So I want to know a little bit more about your reasoning there.
Yes. So there has been a lot of back and forth, I think, about who is going to be number 1. Is it going to be Ryan? Is it going to be Nalissa? So I just want to start off by saying that when people originally talk about who's going to be first in the draft, I think to me that's communicating that player's draft stock. That when we talk about the top 3 players, we're talking about the top 3 people who we believe have the most talent, the most offer to any WNBA roster, and essentially saying, they're 1, 2, and 3. But I think when you talk about the actual team and we see how it was originally Washington at number 1 and now it is in Atlanta's hands who's going to be the number 1 overall pick, I don't think you can automatically say that it would make sense for that to be the same person. You know what I mean? Like, this is not necessarily the case, but let's say Ryan being a guard, and let's say Washington really needed a guard. Mm-hmm. Let's say Atlanta, now having the number 1 pick, needs a center. It does not make sense for them to pick Ryan Howard, a guard, as their number 1 pick, even though she might be the best player between Ryan, Shakira Austin, and Nalissa Smith. So let's just be very clear on that and how fit matters. Right. And I don't think that's an insult to Ryan or any disrespect saying that she's not the overall number one pick. I just think when we are so upset about, you know, teams like Indiana and Dallas who do some weird things with their draft picks, I think if people considered that more about fit and need instead of just the name and whether that player is a generational talent or the best person, I think maybe we would be able to retain more individual players.
And I think that Indiana seems to be drafting like they think they're an MLB team, because in baseball, you don't draft based on need, you draft based on the best player available. So that's an interesting strategy that Indiana has been kind of carrying for the past couple of years.
Yes. So hopefully they will make a pick that makes sense. And so in Ryan going first overall to Atlanta, I'm thinking that if I'm Atlanta, I'm picking Ryan to provide some height in the shooting guard position whenever they need to go with the big lineup. Because right now, Atlanta does have 5 guards on the roster, but all of those guards are 5'11" and shorter. So I think when you look at teams like Chicago, who have a lot of tall people, when they play against us, there will be times where they will need a taller shooting guard. And I think that makes sense to get in Ryan Howard in that position. So that's what I'm thinking if I'm Atlanta. Even though Tiffany Hayes, aka Tip, usually plays the 2, she's 5'10". So again, you're still going to need somebody to play the shooting guard role who's a little taller. And because Tip is your vet, I'm assuming she's going to start. It's not uncommon for rookies to come off the bench. So I think Ryan coming off the bench at the 2 could provide some much needed energy to hold a lead or create one. Because I think Atlanta had a lot of problems last year with, you know, keeping leads or getting them. So I think that is a necessary investment. Atlanta has talked a lot about a new culture, you know, following their huge trade of Kennedy Carter in exchange for LA's Erica Wheeler. So I think, you know, Ryan is a team player from what I've seen with her in Kentucky. And I think she's used to putting a team on her back when they really need her. So I think she's absolutely probably the best fit for Atlanta, which means that, again, I do think that, you know, Nalissa Smith is at the number 1 for some people and the number 2 for others. So I think Indiana at number 2 should go with Nalissa. At first I thought, okay, Indiana might pick a center in Shakira Austin because they just traded Tierra McCowan to Dallas. However, that doesn't necessarily make sense because Indiana already has 2 centers on the roster at 6'4" and 6'10", but they only have 3 forwards. So I think Nalissa makes the best option for them. Okay. And I see, you know, we have a comment on the YouTube saying, well, it depends. You don't pass on Michael Jordan because you have Clyde Drexler.
That's fair, but it definitely depends on the situation, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, again, we've seen it with Indiana. Kaiser was just picked number 4, and last year Dallas picked Charlie, who didn't see much playing time. I think some people will argue she didn't make that much of an impact. And so when you have teams that are constantly picking names based on anything else other than fit for that team, I don't think it's a good decision. So I think it's okay for Nalissa to be at the 2 with Indiana.
Yeah, and those 2 players had some huge name recognition in the draft before. Right. So at number 3, what are your thoughts on number 3 then?
Okay, so if Atlanta picks Ryan, which I think is the best choice, and then Indiana with their second pick chooses Nalissa, I think Shakira Austin goes to now DC, which most people predicted her to do. But again, with the change of Atlanta to DC, fortunately, I don't think it made that much of a difference in how I probably already had the top 3 going with Ryan, Nalissa, and then Shakira. But I think because Washington has 7 people on the roster that can play the forward position and 2 centers with Elizabeth Williams and being able to play the forward, it makes sense for them to take Shakira to kind of relieve some of that pressure from Elizabeth Williams. And again, the fact that you already have 7 forwards, you probably want to take a 3rd center before you want to take an 8th forward.
Right.
So
just for more parity.
Yes. And we've seen injuries, especially with DC. So
definitely.
I think last center injuries hit a lot of people, including Chicago. So being able to have a fully loaded and deep bench is super important.
Oh, absolutely. Depth is always good all around. We have a question saying that why doesn't Chicago have a pick? So we said earlier that all 3 picks in 3 rounds were traded, so hence why Chicago does not have a pick in this draft. But there is a window for the 2023 draft. Is there anybody eligible in that draft class that you have your eye on, Subria?
For you saying for next year?
For next year, yeah.
I mean, I don't think we're gonna get her, but I think everybody is gonna be looking for Aaliyah Boston.
Oh yeah, she's gonna be very coveted.
Yeah, and even Zaya Cook, when you are hearing a lot about South Carolina and you see what Asia Wilson is doing with Las Vegas, and even with Ty Harris on the Dallas Wings, and we even got a former Gamecock and Kayla Davis.
Yes,
so
Kayla.
Las Vegas did a move, I think yesterday as well, if not the day before, and it looked like what I think is a play for them to get Destiny Henderson. So I think paying attention to that, and if they move to Vegas and do well, I think that might influence Zaya Cook's draft stock as well, who is everywhere when it comes to the NIL deals. And she's been a little rocky with her play this past season with South Carolina. But if she can really focus and be consistent that senior year, I think we might start hearing a lot about Zaya Cook as well.
All right, so just to recap the draft, we have 108 NCAA draft entrants for a 36-player WNBA draft, and that also includes international players. Like we mentioned before, not every first-rounder ended the season in the league. So there are some pretty tough odds to make a WNBA roster. So plenty of teams already have full rosters heading into training camp. Just even looking at this draft class, it's definitely going to be difficult. So I'm thinking, is roster expansion to like maybe 15 possible? I do know last week we spoke with Candace Dupree on possibly expanding the league. There's like so much talent. There's so much just like fantastic players in this league and not a lot of roster spots. So being drafted doesn't necessarily mean you're going to play. What needs to happen besides obviously expanding the league?
Okay, so I think that league expansion is super important for the growth of the league, but I'm a kind of person that I believe in systems clearly and doing things that make sense and being the best that you can be before you add more to your plate. And I think that the WNBA has a lot of work that they need to do before you start talking about expansion. So, right. For example, in many seasons past, we've seen teams have a lot of issues with Vegas probably being one of the worst. And I think before that, Indiana, where Vegas had to bus it somewhere because they couldn't get a flight. And so if you're talking about sending someone, I mean, the Sparks already have to go, let's say Connecticut. I was trying to look up a flight the other day for an LA Sparks player from Connecticut, and there were none that were less than like a 12-hour trip with layovers, because I don't think there was any direct ones, and there were some that took, like, you went somewhere on the first day, slept somewhere, and then went the rest of the way the the next day. And so if you're even talking about expanding to Toronto, which a lot of people have, and I think that would be really cool if we can't get people from Vegas and California to Connecticut properly. How on earth are we going to be able to get a team from Toronto to anywhere over here?
Heck yeah, Sky in 4. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I actually had dinner with a friend from Toronto last night who's a huge women's basketball fan, a huge Raptors fan. But she was telling me a Toronto WNBA team would probably likely not play in Scotiabank Arena. They'd probably have to play in Mississauga, kind of out in the burbs. I don't want to say the sticks. I don't want to offend any Mississaugans listening to this podcast. But it's out there. Like it's really out there. It's really difficult to get to. But yeah, you're right that if, say, we're having problems shipping or getting players from LA to Connecticut, can you imagine like the mess that there'd probably be at customs? Having to that would just be like logistically very difficult. Though Toronto at face value seems like a really cool expansion city, but I think the league definitely needs to rectify those issues first.
Yes, and then once they do that, I think they can absolutely start moving forward with the expansion. But also to me, there's an issue as far as, their contracts and making it not even more possible for players, but just the more viable option and the safest option instead of going overseas. Because when you think about how we're asking college players to go, they got through playing in the NCAA tournament last week, some within the last couple of weeks, and the season starts in less than a month. So they're turning right around and going into training camp to learn, to practice, to do workouts and all of that stuff, and their bodies aren't really getting the break the same way a lot of players are coming from overseas. A lot, just finished with their championships within the last 48 hours, and then they have to come right back. And so, are we going to be able to address that? And then lastly, being able to address a simple solution to me, which is looking at the players who are still there now. Now, I'm not saying the league or a team or fans or anyone should pressure any player into early retirement whatsoever. And I think this is why stakeholders really need to take a look and figure out, what's the best way to do it and what's the best way to frame it and phrase it. But there are a lot of players who have been there for a very long time, and there have been some calls on WNBA Twitter again who are saying, all right, like when are you going to leave the league? With, Sue announcing last year it was possibly going to be her last year, and then fans saying one more year, and what that means for a spot in Seattle. The same way with Diana in Phoenix, and Phoenix wasn't even able to get a rookie last year. And, just what does that mean for spaces for potential, draft picks coming in?
There was an interesting tweet by former MNBA player Luke Bonner. He said that the WNBA got to be the most challenging league to be a rookie. College ends, and you basically walk straight into the WNBA season. Many are still finishing classes too, while the MNBA gets roughly 3 months of pre-draft prep and a whole summer to scope out the league. So Lexi Brown, quote tweeted saying that she had to take her grad school finals 2 weeks early. So it's difficult. It really is a bit of a grind.
Yeah, very much so. And so hopefully, while we don't have all the answers, hopefully someone gets the answers and we can really make a push for expansion, and hopefully players will start taking a page from WNBA legend Simone Augustus's book, who, I think I talked about on here before. She's in practice. She's realizing she's not getting up and down the court as fast or as easily as she should compared to her teammates, and she was able to go right into an assistant coaching position. So I think even the rule of allowing or providing teams with an extra or a third assistant coach spot as long as it's a former player, is the first step in getting them more opportunities, so that the older veterans or the more seasoned veterans don't have to hold on to that spot, and they can go directly into something else where they can still, fulfill their need and their love for the game. I think maybe that's the first step in opening some more spaces, getting new collective bargaining agreements, figuring out those issues, with travel, and then being able to talk expansion. And then maybe we will all be happy because we can all get what we want.
Speaking of getting what we want, so this podcast is hosted by the lovely folks at CHGO that offer podcasts and live shows on every team every day, with post-game shows, premium written content for members at allchgo.com, dope merch for all teams, including your Chicago Sky. There's a free shirt when you become a member, buy the Sky shirt, and there's also a members-only Discord called the CHGO Lounge, where you can talk to us, yell at each other, yell at me. You've always wanted to. So anyway, allchgo.com. Please join. Please become a member. We would love to see you up in that Discord. All right. Well, moving on to one of my favorite segments of the podcast called Court of Law.
Yay.
Gavel bang, 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 bang. I know you only bang the gavel like once in a court, but there you go. Oh, nice. We got the gavel banging sound effect there. Fantastic. All right. So if you're new to the CHGO Sky Podcast, Court of Law is essentially where I will read cases on the docket to Judge Subria, and Judge Subria will give her ruling on some of the issues we have here. So our first case on the docket, the People versus WNBA All-Star Weekend. So there is a tweet posted here from Alexis Robinson saying that the WNBA All-Star and being in a different city at the same time as the NBA Summer League is tough. So shouldn't the leagues work together on that? Why keep competing? So, WNBA is making it hard to support an event that big for the league. So, what is up here? What's going on here?
So, and I had a real life conversation with Alexis in real time when this tweet was made, and she brought up some interesting points. Granted, at first thought, I don't necessarily agree with that, but this is what Court of Law is about. It's about reading both positions, thinking through them, getting some feedback from you, and then we can make an informed decision. So she is essentially saying that she does not necessarily agree with WNBA All-Star being in Chicago July 10th through the 12th, while NBA Summer League is happening in Las Vegas. So I think that Chicago is the right idea. First, I will say that I am not necessarily on board with blaming the WNBA or expecting the WNBA to do something because the NBA is there. You know what I mean?
Right.
I feel like part of what's great about NBA All-Star Weekend is that it is everywhere. Like, if it wasn't, Chicago would not have gotten it, and I would not have had the great time that I had participating in the events for NBA All-Star Weekend. Right. I don't think we should rob cities of that. I mean, actually, outside of this year, so I do think there's a great case to have Chicago here. But outside of this year, I would actually love to see if All-Star Weekend in the WNBA was played in a city that didn't have a WNBA team. So that way, that would allow people in those markets who don't have a team to actually, see players. What do you think about that?
That's a fantastic idea. I was almost going to bring up Toronto again, but of course, logistics again, making everything difficult for our international fans. But who's to say that it's not impossible? But yeah, I would love to see maybe a city like Toronto. Maybe like Nashville, perhaps. Milwaukee, I think, would also be a fantastic WNBA city, too. I know there's definitely interest up there. They've got a big basketball community. No Bucks propaganda on this podcast though. But but yeah, I do know that they're more than willing to support the WNBA up there though.
Yes, and one of Alexis's points, which is a great point, is that there are brands who cover basketball as a whole that will be doing activations or whatever they're doing that requires them to pour a lot of their resources into NBA Summer League, which is going to be in Vegas. And that she's saying that brands will not be able to do both, and that it would be better if they work together so that they could essentially provide resources, activations, marketing, media coverage, whatever, to both at the same time in one place. Obviously, NBA Summer League is in Las Vegas, and I'm sure there are arguments for, because I would say, well, why don't you just move Summer League? Summer League is way longer. Mm-hmm. The WNBA's All-Star Weekend is really even a weekend. It's like 2 days.
Yeah, it's just a weekend.
And so to that, I said to her, well, I feel like if a brand is using the excuse that they cannot attend or participate in WNBA All-Star Weekend because NBA Summer League is going on, that brand did not have intentions on covering it in the first place, and it's not a priority.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think just the whole mentality of treating the WNBA like it's a charity is just unfair and just insulting to women's sports and the league too. So
yeah, which you have similar thoughts as Jasmine Baker, who said it's just business. If some folks weren't so busy making women's sports seem like a charity all the time, they'd understand the league fumbled, shouldn't be working this hard all the time. So you say that brands shouldn't treat the WNBA like a charity. It should be a priority, and that they should be able to cover both, considering the budgets and the amount of people that brands have to do both. Whereas, Jasmine essentially says the same thing. It's not a charity, but she thinks that the WNBA fumbled or made a bad decision to have it in Chicago in competition with the NBA Summer League. And again, I just think that it's really not a competition. I think, again, people can do both. And there are a lot of people, though, who really only focus on the WNBA. And I think it's unfair to force WNBA fans to, make everything a package deal with the NBA in the interest of forcing NBA fans to kind of accept the WNBA. And while it may be, one part of a business decision, I get it, sure, it's more convenient. But I think a lot of times the WNBA and supporters feel like it's a priority to get new fans, and I don't think that's true. I can't imagine. I mean, just looking at the ESPN comments, whenever anybody mentions a WNBA player,
it's like get in the kitchen or something.
I don't want those people. Yeah. I do not want those people at WNBA All-Star Weekend.
I want those people far away from me.
Exactly. And if they prioritize the NBA, I think we should let them stay where the NBA is. Let them do whatever they want to do, and we should start focusing and catering on the WNBA fans that already exist, or the people who have potential to become WNBA fans, not people who even see it as a competition and that they have to commit to the NBA at the cost of the WNBA. So I think it's a great choice to have in Chicago. Granted, I could be biased because I'm in Chicago, but I mean, I feel like the Aces shouldn't get everything, and they just had All-Star Weekend there last year. So I think they'll be okay.
They already had All-Star Weekend.
We do have breaking draft news. Ryan Howard did go first overall.
Woo! Right. This is
1 for 1.
Subria,
we'll see if the next two
Subria,
are correct.
Nostradamus Subria, the number 1 pick in the 2022 WNBA draft, was Ryan Howard to the Atlanta Dream. So hats off to Subria for calling that.
Thank you. Ooh. And that's a great choice from Atlanta from multiple perspectives. Atlanta is probably the most consistent team when it comes to doing or celebrating the HBCUs and Divine Nine Greeks, just because of how many HBCUs are located in Atlanta. And for those who are not familiar, that's historically Black colleges and universities. And the fact that even though Ryan is from Kentucky and she did not attend an HBCU, she is a member of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated, which is a historically Black Greek letter organization. And so we've only really seen that with Asia Wilson, who is a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. She is in Vegas, as well as Tiffany Mitchell, who is also an AKA in Indiana. So it's good to see another organization represented in the league, and I hope Atlanta has fun with that. And congratulations, Ryan. I love that for you, sis.
All right, congratulations to Ryan Howard. Right. Moving on, our next case on the docket, we've got Fox College Hoops versus the WNBA, the one and done rule. So this tweet here from Fox College Hoops says that there's some big-time college basketball talent not eligible for this year's WNBA draft due to draft eligibility rules. Should the WNBA change to match the NBA's one and done rule? So just a brief primer for those of us who may not know, what is the NBA's one and done rule?
So the NBA's one and done rule was originally implemented to prevent athletes from entering the NBA draft straight out of high school. And that rule states that athletes must be at least 19 years old and at least 1 year removed from the graduation date of their high school class. So typically, players who want to take advantage of this, they commit to a college, they get playing time, practice, be able to work out, more name recognition, essentially building their draft stock, and then they declare for the NBA draft.
Okay.
And so the reason that they brought this up is because, unlike the NBA, the WNBA states that to be draft eligible, a player must be at least 22 years old during the calendar year in which the draft is held and either has no remaining college eligibility left or renounces their remaining college eligibility. And I feel like now that I've said this out loud, we may need to do some research about whether this applies or why this doesn't apply, because I don't think this applies internationally. Right? Like Shayla Hill.
See, because I do know that Lee Yuru wasn't allowed to come over until she was at least 20. Yeah.
So I guess that right there is another issue that maybe the league needs to reconsider to make it fair all around. So they're basically asking, should the WNBA allow players to enter the draft when they are 19 years old and at least 1 year removed from the graduation of their high school class, instead of the current rule, which is 22 and no remaining eligibility left, or renounces their college eligibility?
Because in that graphic, I do see some familiar names. We see Caitlin Clark, we see Aaliyah Boston, Anissa Morrow. Yeah, so lots of interesting names here that are not eligible for 2022, but to have these extra names, say, in the current year's draft, what implications does that hold?
Well, I mean, I would love, I think right now, Anissa Morrow, because I talk about her all the time. I wish I had my Anissa agenda signed.
Blue Demons, baby.
If she was eligible to participate in the one and done rule, she could have declared and she'd be on the board right now. Now, I have two problems with that. One, I really want Chicago to be able to play the long game with her and get her when she's eligible, so she can remain a hometown hero. But the other thing is, as much as I love Anissa, I think she would do herself a favor by staying in college, becoming more of a veteran. Because I think in the WNBA, not only are there limited spots, but these are the best players here and across the world. And so I think it would even be unfair to allow a young, freshman Anissa Morrow to go up against these veterans in training camp. So I think we can't even have this conversation until we have expansion. But even then,
that's true. Yeah.
I don't agree. I know when an NBA player called me a few years ago, who I went to University of Illinois with, he called me and he said, I'm draft eligible, but I also still have a year of eligibility left at school. So should I just get my master's or should I go to the league? And I told him, I said, I think that the more you build your body in college and develop and play these players, I think the better you'll be, because a lot of players end up, going from high school play and what that does with the body, and then only 1 year of college. And then when they get to the league and they're getting hit and bumped up against all these really big, older, more mature players, they have a lot of injuries. So that person listened to me. And so by that alone, I think I'm going to rule and say that the WNBA's draft rules should remain as they are.
Judge Subria has spoken. I do remember last week during our conversation with Candace Dupree, a piece of advice that she wanted to give WNBA rookies was to take care of your body, to just make sure that you are building yourself up, eating right, just treating yourself well. So that's the reason why the WNBA, pretty much every game is an all-star game. This league is incredibly stacked with talent. We got another piece of news here. Looks like Nalissa Smith is headed to Indiana.
Is that what I said?
Is that what you said? I think so. I think that is what you predicted. Let's see here. Oh, you said Shakira Austin is what you said. But you did say that Nalissa may actually be the best choice, seeing as how Indiana already has 2 centers on their rosters, but only 3 forwards. So I'm gonna give that one to you.
Oh yeah. Okay. So yes, I said that my first thought was that Indiana would pick Shakira only to replace Tierra, because I thought people's first mindset would be, okay, well, they just gave away a great center. It would make sense for them to replace her with Shakira, but that didn't actually make sense because Indiana already has 2 centers outside of Tierra. So even though they traded Tierra, they have a 6'4" and 6'10" center already, but only 3 forwards. And if they needed a forward, also known as Nalissa. So right now I'm 2 for 2. And now I'm excited to see who the third pick is, to see if I got all of them right. Yeah,
the graphic does say Nalissa. So you are 2 for 2. You are batting 1,000 here. You are shooting at 100%. So I love it. I think you're going to go 3 for 3 here, Subria. I think so.
I don't know. I hope so. There was a lot I saw with. Oh wait, she's number 3. Somebody call me, put me in a front office right now, because I just went 100% 3 for 3 for the first top 3 picks in this year's draft.
You even got the air horn. I love it. Yeah, you are fantastic.
Sorry to whoever is listening to this later, and I kind of just accidentally blew your eardrums out, but I just need everyone to understand my excitement, because literally earlier today, as I was putting my notes together, I called the player, a WNBA player, and I'm like, I need your help. Well, I text her. I said, I need your help. I have a question. And so she jokes like, you always do, because I'm always asking her to learn more. I mean, Candace Dupree talked about it. Like, there's always more to learn. And
always, yeah.
So I'm like, okay, so here's my thought process. And I'm kind of reading, what my notes were for the first one. And I'm like, okay, so at first I thought Atlanta might, select Nalissa because they gave away, or I said Ryan because they gave away Kennedy, but that didn't really make sense because Kennedy was traded for Erica Wheeler, and so right there, that's point guard for point guard. But she really said, but you made a great point in saying that Ryan Howard could be valuable to them as a 2, because you're right, she is taller, and even though Tip normally plays at the 2, again, she's taller, so you might be right. And I can't wait to when we get off set to call her and say, I was right, thanks for your help. So yes.
Oh my God. Well, congratulations. Hats off to you. That was a fantastic run. And everything just logically kind of breaks down. You analyzed the team's needs, just who made the most sense. So really fantastic analytical chops you got there.
Thank you.
All right. Well, other than that, that pretty much does our show for this week. As always, I'm Janice Scurio. You may follow me at Scuriosa, spelled Scuriiosa. Please follow the CHGO Sky Twitter account. We would love for you to do so. That handle is CHGO_Sky. And while you're at it, go ahead and follow CHGO Sports. That handle is CHGO_sports. Subria, any last words you'd like to leave our listeners with?
Yes. We still have about an hour and a half left in this draft. So please follow me on Twitter at Subria Whitaker, at SUBRIAWHITAKER. Let's continue this draft conversation. And also shout out and thank you to everyone who is listening, anyone in the CHGO or All City Media family who purchased or who donated for the Grow the Game Merch Madness t-shirt. I appreciate every last one of you. And if you're not already tapped in and following Grow the Game, make sure you're following us at Grow the Game W, because we have awesome and amazing plans with CHGO Sky and CHGO Sports for this upcoming alleged highly anticipated All-Star weekend of the WNBA, and we have
plans.
a lot of plans, a lot of surprises coming up. And you can also visit www.growthegamew.com to purchase your Chicago Sky tickets, where a portion of your ticket price will be donated back to Grow the Game. So I look forward to seeing you all and maybe getting some content with the fans when we start playing in about 4 weeks.
Yeah, when we start playing in 4 weeks, we'll be at the games. Like, we would absolutely love to meet you. We'd love to chat with you guys. So we got a question. Will you be doing pre and post games? The question to that, yes, we will. So more to come regarding that, but yeah, we'll definitely be at the games, supporting the Chicago Sky. But yeah, it's going to be a fantastic summer. We look forward to sharing that with you all.
Yep. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next week. Sky in 4.
Sky in 4.